player to play back some videos, which we'll show you in a bit. I don't normally like to use video, but when I'm now providing evangelism services for a company called Amplifier, we're talking about gameplay video, it seemed appropriate to try and show you, rather than just tell you, what's important about discovery. So we'll get into video in a bit. What I'm going to try and do, I don't know how many people in the room know who I am and what I've done. I'll try and give you this sort of quick précis. I've been doing games, particularly online games and community games, for about 14 years. I used to run an online gaming service called Wireplay, which was British Telecom's dial-up modem, Quake and Counter-Strike service. I'm particularly proud that we saved Counter-Strike, and for the price of just £3,000, we managed to buy them new PCs. Otherwise, the whole game would never have happened, so I'm told. Sadly, I didn't get my name in the credits, but my colleagues did, so that's something I need to fix another time. I also was quite well known for running the 3 mobile games service, where we did 68% of the UK downloads and plays, 45% of the revenue, and we only had 5% of the UK audience. To put that into context, we were making $1 million a month off a 3.5 million audience. And I don't think there was another service making that much money per customer, probably in the world, but I can't prove that. I've done a whole bunch of stuff since then, but probably the most interesting to people here will be my 3 years working on PlayStation Home, where I was home architect. It's a great title, but what it means is I was the whipping boy for the politics of what features would be implemented into the platform. But it's an incredibly misunderstood platform, and I thoroughly recommend people to look into it still to this day. I now work as an evangelist for a variety of companies, but I've spent a lot of time looking at social games, and obviously now I'm talking a lot about video, and that'll all become clear as we talk through. But what has happened over my 14 years of career is I've seen probably tens of thousands of games. I've also seen how those games sell, perform, are played, and I have that kind of analytical mind where I want to know why. And so I've taken all these pieces of information, these snippets, and pull that into a presentation like this and try and help share with you guys some of the important factors. Now this one's going to be about discovery, and it's about time we stop blaming Apple and Google for failing to get discovered. It's not their job to help us get found. It's our job to show people what's great about our game. And what this presentation is going to try and do is to show you how, if you think about design in a way that improves discovery, not only will you make a better game, but you'll actually make that game much easier for people to find. So we're going to talk about a few things. So, think about these. How do people find your game? The App Store itself isn't the be-all and end-all. Being featured is a great thing, but it's not actually the most common way that people find you. There's another thing that's really important to think about. Why should players care about your game? Do you sit down when you're designing a game and say, so what, to yourself? Do you think to yourself, why should a player love my game enough to change their Facebook status? Imagine going on the first date and asking your prospective girlfriend to change their Facebook status then and there. And we do this all the time in social games. We don't think about taking the time and wondering what it is that's going to make that player love us and care about what we're doing. And we need this, and we'll talk about the rhythm of this kind of experience and how we engage and maintain players. But it's intrinsic if we want those very players to share with their friends what's so special about this game. I'm also going to talk about moving experiences. Practical, realistic, literally moving experiences. I'm going to talk about video. I'm actually going to use video as a way to think about the flow of games. A particular video, which is the viral video from Black Ops, which we'll look at. But actually, what's interesting about that is the structure and the type of communication it has. And I think it has great relevance to the way we design games, which is kind of odd. So we'll talk about the impact of video. The thing I'm trying to get across to you is that it's easy to find games. It's just hard to find your game. And the job of the App Store is to help the person who's bought that device to get a great experience of some kind. It is not to make sure that every game developer in the world who are uploading hundreds of apps a day can get every app found equally. So we have to think about that. We have to think about why the App Store will want to care about us, why the player will want to care about us. We actually have to think about games as brands. This is the craziest thing for me because I'm a trained marketeer who happens to be passionate about game design. I've spent all my career learning about the systematic approaches that people take in designing and marketing and branding and communicating any kind of product, whether it's a fridge or whether it's a pension scheme or whether it's a game. Obviously, I like games. There are things that we do if we're going to build a brand. In fact, actually what a brand is something that's instantly recognizable. And there are very few games which you could say are recognizable brands. But if we don't take the attitude that we're building one, what chance do we have? What chance does the player have to fall in love with us if we don't create an identity that they can grab onto and adore? Actually, I'm going to ask this as a question. How many of you in the room know what the 4 Ps are? Okay, so that's really scary if you think about it. Those of us who have done marketing know how important the 4 Ps are, which is product, price, place, and promotion. I know it's a bit academic, and why was that got to do anything with game design? Well, if we're entering a world where it's got some fierce competition, if we don't know what is it about our product that's going to make this work, how does price work, how does the communication channels to other people work, and how do we communicate to them, how do we use effective communications, we're actually missing a massive trick. Because traditionally what's happened is we haven't let the marketing guys anywhere near our game because they don't get us. They don't understand games. So let them go away and do their own thing. And when I've finished this thing, then they can go and make a package good from it. We can't do that anymore. We have to think about the customer who's going to be playing our game because we're not just dealing with people who are us. So this is the stats that I think is really vital. When an audience was asked, as EDAR survey, where do they find games? 35% said they found games from friends and family. 26% said from Facebook. 25% said from the feature. Think about what that means, is that the social communications that we do is vastly more important than just having a feature. Having a feature is like a lottery slot. You've got a few things you can do to make yourself more likely to get it, by making sure your game shows something off valuable to that mobile experience, that platform. But actually, it's a bit of a lottery, and you've got to have a relationship with the particular platform holder to get it. But the thing that you're not restricted is how do you create word of mouth? So what do we do? Well, products are all about people. Who's going to use the device? Who's going to use the game? Who's going to have that experience? Free has already been decided, but actually free is complicated. Free means we're not going to make you make a buying decision in the App Store. It doesn't mean we're going to make a game that's going to exploit you. It means we think about where the player decides the choice to spend money, and we want to be in control of that, so we want to create an experience that they will love so that there's no barriers for them to play. In fact, I was hearing the tutorial discussion before me. Don't have a tutorial. It's a barrier to play. Now, you have to explain how to play the game, don't get me wrong, and it's just so important to get people in playing as fast as possible. But you have to know who your players are, and where they are, and what else they use to communicate. Because the traditional media isn't always the best to find somebody who's going to be interested in your game. You still want the reviews, you still want to create the context using gaming press and non-gaming press that will keep people interested, but where are they talking to each other? And we have to put meaning into the experiences they have. We have to make it memorable, because discovery begins in the game. You've got 6 seconds to get people starting playing. You've got a minute to give them a payoff. I mean, these numbers aren't exact, they're just to give you a sense of it. You've got a minute to give them a payoff, a meaningful experience that says, this is worth doing, and I'm going to show my friend this minute's worth of play, and isn't it great? I've then got to have another reason to do my second, my third, my fourth play in the same session. And I've got to be able to get that player to spend time and to click on that icon of mine again when they've closed down the app. Think about what that means. 85 apps per device on average. Only 5 to 10 apps per week are used. The stats change, and I've heard different sources, but some say 64%, some say 85% of apps never get clicked twice. Why are they going to pick your app of everything else they've got on their phone to do again? And how do you keep them doing it for 8 to 12 days? And 8 to 12 days is important because if you look at social games in particular, the people who are going to spend $100 a month or more are doing that after 8 to 10 days. And then we've got to keep them playing. And if we're not aiming for 100 plus days, think about that into your game design. We have to have the player playing for 100 plus days in order to maximize their potential to love and play and invest their time and money in our game. And think about what that means for your game. Right, so I'm going to go into the video a bit because I think this is a great way to think about, how we communicate to people. Oh.
Concierge.
Call of Duty Black Ops, rated M for mature.
So why am I showing Call of Duty Black Ops? It's because it's a brilliant video. It's simple. The premise we completely understand instantly. It's familiar, but it's surprising. And it makes me part of the experience. I am one of those guys who you saw. I might be the proud noob, or I might be the short order chef who's firing off his pistols. There's something about this premise that grabs my attention and gets me to think about it. And actually, think about the flow of game. I talked about those 6 seconds, the minute, the keeping people playing. If we don't make our game experience intimately personal, something which can allow players to feel that they're expressing themselves, we're going to be missing out on the opportunity for them to then want to tell other people about what's going on. We have to provoke emotion, and it's something we do very well. Now, obviously, that's a first-person shooter, and not every game's like that. And you're not going to do that kind of visual panaz in a game that's about a puzzle. No, but it's the emotion that I'm talking about here. It's about learning from the way that people communicate and using that in the way that we express the game design. And it's also, think about what that had. Every moment in that video was utterly and perfectly tuned to the brand that we appreciate, that is Black Ops. We know in ourselves exactly what that means to us. And then when we see this coming along and when we come across the game, the next level, the next opportunity, the next piece all feels familiar and yet can still surprise us. And obviously that video went viral, which is why I'm showing it, because I think, thinking about what that means is that if it communicated the visual experience in a way that then other people want to share because it's just sheer joy. And your game needs to be sheer joy as well. So let's use another example. Oops. So this is a video from the Bad Piggies guy, from Robio. And I just think this is a delight. So So I think that's joyful, again. And it's not a first-person shooter, but they've shown us something about the experience. They've communicated the game in a really easy way. So whether you're producing a video to talk about your game, or whether you're producing a game and how that's structured to show people, instead of tutorials, but actually make it easier to understand and easy to flow. That video also shows off features. It helps people understand it. But it's not labouring the point. It's not saying, here's a big sign, you must do this. It's all instinctive and obvious. It's intrinsically entertaining. And it challenges players. It makes you want to play. And when somebody starts your game, they've just downloaded it, installed it, and they're going to run that game, they have to feel like this in order to be able to get through all of these barriers. They've got to feel like this when they get past the second and third play, so that the next time when they want to play a game, they think to play yours. And obviously we want to go beyond that. And I'm going to show you a series of games which have taken the other way around. So rather than using video as an analogy for how we design, I'm now going to turn that on its head and say, what if we start using video as a way to communicate? And actually, what if we use our games as the vehicle for that communication? And so these are some games from Everyplay, people who've used the Everyplay service. And I think it's a useful way. And actually, that was me falling through the world, which I quite liked, the quirky glitchiness of that. I actually discovered this game through Everyplay, and I love it. And when it's got permadeath. I recently lost a character I'd been nurturing for about a week, and I'm absolutely devastated. Smashing away. Really subtle controls, actually. I'll tell you about that later if you're interested. And I've talked about Counter-Strike, and this is obviously a very similar game with Counter-Strike, so I love it. And people are using it to show off trick shots, so this is players who love the game mucking about with what they're going to share in the experience of play. Just brilliant, isn't it? So what I'm hoping is you see from this, there's a whole bunch of things that you can show off in the flow of your game that's natural and emotionally charged. But it goes both ways. Pause isn't working. So, what I'm hoping you're taking from that is if you build into the game the reasons why people will be emotionally engaged, if you build into the game the methods which charge their passions, but also that they can then share with other people, the meaningful moments that make them so delighted they were going to continue playing that game continuously, if you can then build into that experience methods which allow players to share something that means something to them, not something that means something to you as a developer. The mistake people often make is, I don't know if you remember the old Facebook thing, there's this little lamb at the end of your lane, do you want to adopt him? No, I bloody don't. It's annoying to get completely fed those kind of meaningless, shallow advertising things. But if I show you the last time I cut the head off this enemy in this particular sword fighting game, or the amazing pattern of puzzle blocks that then broke through that particular story, and it was me that did that, well, that's a different thing. That's something that creates passion. That's something that communicates the game to other people and will attract an audience. So I'm suggesting, this isn't just me trying to sell Everyplay, this is me showing you in terms of game design that there is a whole bunch of things we can learn by looking at the way people communicate and then taking those lessons and building them into the game design. We need to build moving experiences, evolving the engagement of the player as they become deeper and more interested in the experience. Not trying to get them to talk about us too early or spend money too early, but to go with them and to do engagement-led design that brings out their interest and value and then uses that to our advantage, because then we can communicate the passion of the game. And it also means that's the point where they want to invest in money. We're not manipulating them. And the freemium model allows us to do better games if we do this right. If we do it wrong, we get flack, we get people wanting their money back. If we do it right, then people just want to spend more money because they love our games. And that means we need to be aware of the natural expression of play. But we also have to create the unexpected. Familiarity allows people to feel they can play. The unexpected keeps them playing. And if we can share the unexpected, we can build in discovery. So that was what I was going to talk about. I hope that was interesting. I'll give you 2 seconds, hopefully, of Everyplay. If you're interested in recording and sharing those magical moments in your game, go look at developers.everyplay.com. Download the SDK, it's free, and it allows you to capture and record the gameplay. Those gameplay sessions, a couple of those I recorded myself, but a couple I've taken from the service. There's a whole bunch of games out there. And just to give you a sense of what this is about, so if you want to know why this stuff works, so Stair Dismount, the last of the videos I showed you, that was the first game that went up, and it's been up for about, well, just over 30 days. In the 30 days, they had over 10,000 uploads of video from the players. So that means that someone's played the game, liked the clip that they created from playing so much they decided to share it, and 10,000 of those videos went up. 50% of those had a share to Facebook, 35% went to YouTube, and 15% went to Twitter. But that's not the important bit. The important bit is, for each of the Facebook uploads, 15 of their friends then came to the site to watch the video, and 12% of them then went to the App Store to download the game. That's an incredibly effective way to communicate, because you're not producing an advert which says what you want to say. You're producing a tool for the player to say what they want to say about your game that they love. If you don't make a game that they love, they're never going to do this. But equally, if you don't put techniques like this into your game to communicate, you're not going to get the audience. That's me. Hopefully that was interesting. Any questions?
Right.
I don't bite, and I can answer questions on all sorts of things in terms of monetization, socialization.
Okay. Any questions in the audience? Okay. Here.
All right, hi. Thanks for an awesome speech, and I really think that this is the future. I mean, just the evolution of esports and everything. So,
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, what kind of games does this fit best for? Is it for like 30-minute first-person shooter, or is it like 5-minute hockey games? Or?
So I think that's a really important question, and actually we're yet to find out entirely. And things have surprised me. So Ice Raid, which is the Mountain Sheep game, the one where the guy was doing a 360 before he hit the puck and in. That game, I thought, well, it's only a 2D, well, it's not 2D, but it's a top-down view game, and will people use that? And it's been huge because people are using it to show trick shots. They're using it to say how many can they get, how many goals can they get in a particular time frame, and it becomes competitive in that way. I'm also seeing games where like puzzle platformer games, and you think, okay, why are people going to put a platformer game where the range of player choice isn't particularly huge? Well, it turns out that, well, if I get stuck playing this game, I want to post a video up saying, I can't get past this. How do I get past this? And then you see people responding with, here's a video of how I got past it. And actually, we've just, in fact, we haven't launched it yet, but we're just about to put in a face cam system. So that means we already can capture the face, but we didn't launch with that. But now, when you play back the video, you can record yourself, your face and you talking over the video you've just done. So you can give commentary. So what I'm hoping we'll see is people giving game reviews of games, walkthroughs of games, but being able to create their own personalities. Because it's my face reviewing this game. And if I do a good job, maybe I'm the next Zero Punctuation. But I'm not just, animation. I'm actually showing you the game. Me playing that game and telling you about it. And of course, following people or following games, or maybe even characters from games, means that the developer can manage that channel. So it's down to them how they want to use that resource. So I can't tell you it's going to work for every game, but I've yet to find one game that doesn't provide some surprising way to make use of it. And for me, this is about user-generated content. And why is that interesting? Well, because if you're going to look at the social elements, and I've been doing social for a very long time, most social games are dependent on the rate of change of the game for how frequently people go back to the social experience. But if the players are the reason to go back, if the content that users generate is the reason to go back, then you're no longer dependent on how frequently you can update the game. You're now dependent on how expressive the players can show off. Now, I'm thinking about Little Big Planet and the way that worked. Now, this isn't the same thing, but I think it's closer to that than it is maybe a Gree-type experience. Nothing wrong with a Gree-type experience, it's just they're different things, they're different beasts. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Any more?
Thanks, Oscar.
I've been talking too long, haven't I? Hey,
Can you go again into the numbers a bit? Like when you said 10,000 uploads of videos, how does that relate to the downloads of the game?
well, we
And
haven't.
then the ratios to Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the trouble is that Secret Exit's numbers, so I don't want to talk for them. So I can't tell you the numbers. I just can't. You know, it wouldn't be fair of me. Yanni would probably kick my ass. But you know, it's a great game. It's quite an old game. What Yanni did say to me though was, I thought was really interesting, is when they do an update, features, even every play, isn't something they're looking to necessarily get huge numbers of new people. But what they are finding is it gives users a reason to replay what they've already got. And actually, let's not underestimate the value of that. If you have a new feature, like they had breakability, so they have the dummy and it can break up, and if you combine that with, say, video capture, then I want to go back and replay the earlier levels of that game to see what breakability looks like in that experience, and then be able to share it. So I can't give you numbers, but I can say it's not something that they particularly look at in terms of necessarily huge numbers of new people, although obviously you've seen the click-through rate, you know, the 15 people, whatever. Yeah, of course. So I gotta go. But that was 10,000, 15 friends watching, 12% per YouTube.
Is it an average or is it?
Sorry, that was 15 per Facebook share. Yeah, it's not bad. I better go, otherwise I'll get kicked off. But thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Oscar, for this very emotional talk. We